Do a little shop update here. It kind of might go into it will go into a bunch of topics, but it might be a little lengthy because of it's going into a bunch of topics. But what I'll try and do is down in the description, I'll list what the topics are and what segment they start as. If you want to skip something and jump to something else, I'll do it. Put it down in the description for the times. The first thing that we're going to talk about is that trailer ramp bridge thing that I built for the trailer. As you had seen in previous updates, I had talked about, I had built it out of wood in a previous update, and then I talked about in the last update about building it out of metal. And I'll show you that build, or not the build itself, but how it came out, how I did it, how it came out, and what I had to do to make it fit. One of the other things that I'm going to do is talk about a table that I built. I had talked about it in a previous update of a bowling alley table that I was going to build, and I built that, and I will show that to you after I got it completed. And the other thing is, I don't know whether I'd ever told you in a video, but I had sold the engine that came out of the Ford haul truck. So I'm going to show you getting that prepped. I have to take it to North Carolina to a guy down there, and I will show you mounting it on a skid for prep to be hauled down to North Carolina. So what I've got here is two pieces of tube steel that I cut the bottoms out of. That's going to go over the ramps on the trailer. I've talked about this in previous videos, and so here it is. Two pieces that are going to go over the ramps on the trailer, and then what I'm going to do is weld these pieces of angle iron in between them, so that I can create that support in between the ramps for long steel or anything that I carry on the trailer that's long, just so that it has support. If it can't set on the ramps on the outside, which is ideal, but usually it gets loaded in the center of the trailer and the ramps won't go together in the center. So this is going to be used to span the ramps to support long things on the trailer. I'll bring you back as I do it, build it. What I've done here is I've got a magnetic square. Now, I don't trust that to be actually square, but I did square it up with a machinist square. So I know that it is square. I'm going to tack it on this one. Now what I did is beveled that back a little bit. So what I did is I cut, I don't know whether you can see it on this one. See, what I did is I cut the side of this so that it would kind of fit up over that crown of the tubing, so that it would go up in there. What I'll do is I'm going to tack this one on this one. I'll do the same for this one, and then just set them in so I've got both of them, because I wouldn't be able to square it up really. Wouldn't be able to get that magnetic square in here to hold this on this. So that's what I'll do. Okay, so here it is, before I put the board on it. Now, I'm not really sure if I am going to bolt the board through or drill holes and just screw it into the bottom of it. I'm, smaller holes, and just use screws, wood screws. It's probably going to be a bolt situation, but let me get back to you on that. Let me think about it. I just kind of welded one side on the bottom, and then came in, welded up, and then welded over the top of the tacks. That's why it appears that a couple of them are sticking up further than the other ones. It's because I welded over the tack. But there it is. After I tacked it up, I kind of test fitted it onto the trailer just to make sure that it was just to make sure that it fit all right, and it does. Okay, here we are. We're outside. There is a spanner for the ramps after I put a board on it. Now, that's the second board that I put on it. Like I said before in another video, I was going to try and put a 4x4 on it, and what I did is actually had tried to put this on it, took it down there, and it wouldn't fit in it. So I brought it back and put the 2x4 on top of it, and it slides in fine. So what I've got to do, what I've done is I've just left the 2x4 on it, prepped it up a little bit, and brought it outside and painted it. Actually, I put the primer coat on the inside, but it's gets it overspray all over the shop. So here it is outside. I've just sprayed the black like a second coat. What I'm going to do is I have a clear coat, a rattle can clear coat. So it's not like a clear coat that goes on a car. It's just a rattle can. I'm going to spray that over the metal, over the outside of the metal, and where the insides where it'll rub on the rails, just to give it a little extra added protection. But there it is. What I'll do is after it dries out, I'll take it down, put it in the trailer, and I'll show you how it goes in, or show it to you when it's in position. I wouldn't be able to hold the camera and do it with one hand, probably get it in. Although I might try it, but I'll take you down there and show it to you after I get it clear coated. I just wanted to show it to you up in there. There it is. Again, I couldn't hold the camera and get it in there at the same time, but I wanted to show it to you. I'm showing you this trailer, not my trailer, because it has all of this debris, mud, stones, clumps on it. If you've got a trailer and you ever end up with something like this, make sure you clean it off before you take the trailer out on the road, because you can get a ticket for it. Ticket big time, because of it'll bounce off when the trailer's going down the road, bounce off and hit cars. So it's a law that you have to clean this trailer off. Not only the trailer, if you put an excavator, bulldozer, or anything like that that's got mud, dirt, stones up into the tracks or the treads of it, make sure you clean that off too, because you can get a ticket for that. Because that stuff can come off as a machine is going down the road on the trailer, can bounce out and hit cars. So make sure you clean it off before you ever get a ticket for it. We're gonna just take a little walk down this bench and forget about the mess that's on top of it. Usually what's up here is a chop saw. There's a chop saw that's usually mounted here, and my grandson has it on a job. He's working on a job, so he took the chop saw with him because he had to cut a lot of pieces. But anyways, I just kind of wanted to show you this bench because the bench is actually an old bowling alley, or part of an old bowling alley. I got this bench out of a guy's house in an estate sale. The guy had died, and he was an old machinist. He taught shop in high school and stuff like that, but he also had a career as a machinist. Forgot who he worked for. I think it was Westinghouse or something. The reason I'm showing it to you is because This thing is friggin' heavy. In order to get it out, this thing was actually longer in the house than that it is right now. I actually had to cut it in half and take it out of the house in two pieces because it was so heavy, and the stairwell was angled. It went up to a landing and then turned right and went up into a small hallway, and there is absolutely no way that I could have gotten this thing out in one piece given the width of the hallway at the top and given the angle or the offset of the stairs. There was no way that I could get it out in one piece. It was heavy. The only way that I could figure out that the guy actually got it into his basement originally, and it had been there for a long time. The guy was 102, 104. I forgot what he was when he died, but that bench had been in there almost since when the house was built, back in the 50s, and the only way that I could figure out that he got it in there is because it's bolted together, and the bolts do not, I'm not sure if bowling alley lanes are bolted together in this fashion, but the only way that I could figure out that he got it in is the basement windows would probably open at that time. They would not open, as most of them had been taken out and glass block put in place of them. But the only way that I could figure that he got it down into the basement was it was taken apart strip by strip and fed in through the basement windows and then reassembled down in the basement. But that's not why I'm showing it to you. I'm going to turn you off and take you to the other side of the shop a minute. The other day, my landlord gave me this, and it's another piece of a bowling alley. Up until I got that other workbench that I just showed you, I don't recall ever knowing anybody that had bowling alley for workbenches. And now I've got two of them. Anyways, what I'm going to do with this is, as you can see, it's been notched at the top a little bit. The other side isn't in bad condition, but what I'm going to do with it is make a little, I'm going to cut it down. I'm going to cut it down. I don't know what these painted lines are, but I'm probably going to cut it down to about 5 feet long. Cut off both ends. But what I'm going to do is make it into a portable workbench. I'm going to make a stand for it. I've got to, this thing, they aren't bolted together. They're actually being held together by these wooden strips that are nailed onto the ends. So what I've got to do is I've got to cross span this and drill in each one of these boards so that I make sure that it stays together. But then I'm going to make a stand for it. I'm going to put casters on the bottom of it so that it can be rolled around the shop. So there'll be 2 straight casters and 2 pivoting casters on it so that it can be moved like you move a toolbox, a rolling toolbox. But then I'm going to, I've also got this bench or vise that I got from an auction, so I'm going to mount that on it. But because of the mass of the bowling alley, the bench is going to be pretty heavy. I'll probably, I'm going to use 4x4s, put the caster on the bottom of the 4x4s, but I'm also going to build a rail system so there can be a shelf down below it too. But I just kind of wanted to show it to you. Maybe I'll make some clips of me building it and getting it up. But the one thing that I definitely want is I want it portable so that it can be rolled in and out of the way of stuff. You need to keep stuff mobile in my shop because it becomes so cluttered. that it's hard to get things around, like the gantry crane. Gantry crane was over by the tractor, and I had to get it over here on the truck, so when I get the transmission and engine assembly in, I can use the engine hoist and the gantry crane to kind of set the engine transmission in the truck to figure out what I've got to do to make mounting brackets and how it's going to fit. But that's not the point. I need to keep things mobile in the shop so I can get other things around, or get it around. So I'll bring you back as the build progresses. Okay, I just wanted to show you that bench that I have, that I was going to build out of the piece of bowling alley top. There it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some 2x4s down across those 2x6s and set a piece of plywood on top of it, just for a little shelf down there too. But there it is. The casters that I got, I went to Lowe's. I had gone to Tractor Supply and looked at casters there, and I could have got 2 solid casters and then 2 swivel casters at Tractor Supply. When I went to Lowe's to pick up the wood, all they had was swivel casters, and I just grabbed 4 of them. In hindsight, I wish that I had wished that 2 would have been solid and 2 would have been swivel, and that way you only have to lock 2. It becomes a pain in the ass to lock 4, because when you push this thing, the casters all end up this way, which is fine over on this end, but over here, what happens is the casters end up underneath the board and you can't get to the locking mechanism. So what you got to do is kind of pick the bench up, swivel the casters around 180 degrees so that you can lock them. Now if I was to push it the other way, the same thing would happen in reverse. But anyways, there it is. I mounted that vise that I had gotten in the auction on the top of it. But anyways, there it is. I didn't show you any of the build, but I didn't think you needed to see it, and I probably won't do an update on the shelf, but I'm sure that you'll see it sooner or later as I pan through the shop. Okay, so I lied. I am going to show you. What I did is I did not put 2x4s across there. I had a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, and I just spanned the 2x6s that were used to support the legs and casters. That being enough, I'm not planning on putting anything heavy under there, so really those 2x4s spanning across there wouldn't have been needed. That 3/4 inch plywood will support it just fine. As you can see, what I've done is kind of found a home for jack stands. Now that's not all the jack stands that I have in the shop, but the ones that are free right now, that's going under there. Not saying it's going to be there permanently, but it's a good place for them right now. What I'm going to do is just pan around underneath it just so that you see how it's built. Now these 2x4s on the end of it I put in there, and as you can see from underneath, there's a bunch of screws. What I did is screwed up into each individual board of the bowling alley deck or lane. So I just didn't want them to separate, so what I did is put a 2x4 on each end of it and drove a screw up into each individual board of it. So that's that, and I've got 4x4 legs. You saw the 2x6s underneath the legs in the same way there. Now what I did here is on one side of the vise where I mounted it, I just drilled through the thing and put a bolt through it. On the other side, they're lag bolts going down into it because they actually go down into that I'm sorry, there's one lag bolt. One lag bolt because it goes down into the 4x4 post, and this one is actually a bolt and a nut underneath it. So there's 3 bolts and nuts and one lag bolt holding the vise on. But anyways, there it is, completed. Even though I told you I wouldn't bring it back. Okay, it's a little bit of a shop update. This is the 391 engine out of the Ford haul truck. This is the original engine. Now, I don't know whether I have ever mentioned it in any of my videos, but I've sold this engine. I've actually got to take it down to North Carolina. I'm taking it down to North Carolina, and then there's a possibility that I might also have to take something down to South Carolina, and then I got to swing over to Tennessee and pick up a car and bring a car back for somebody. But anyways, here it is, that 391 engine. If you have been following the haul truck build in one of the earlier chapters on this, on the truck, when I first got the truck, I actually have a video of this thing running, of me starting it and running it. But anyways, what I'm doing is, it was temporarily sitting on that skid. What I've got to do is mount it up on a skid for the journey down there. I would need to throw it on the trailer. I can't just throw it in the back of the truck because I've got to bring a car back from Tennessee. So anyways, 391 engine, the original engine out of the Ford 750 haul truck, being sold. What I'm going to do is give you a brief video on how I secured this engine to a skid or a pallet for transport. Now, I mean, people could throw the engine in the back of a pickup truck and just kind of forget it, close the tailgate and forget about it and transport it. But what I have to do is I'm going to put it on the trailer because I've got to take the trailer down to and pick up a car in Tennessee to bring back. So I had to secure it to a pallet to be able to load it onto the trailer and not worry about it coming dislodged from its tie-down point, and for a way to be able to load and unload it. So I'm going to show that to you briefly. So the skid that the motor is going to go on, just with the front support in there. Now what I'm going to do is lag that front support down to that block. I'll bring you back. It rocks a little bit, but once I get it lagged down in the front, it'll be good. And then I might actually put a couple of 2x4 braces under it too, but I'll bring it back. What I did is I got the garden hose out and just hosed down the floor a little bit to get some of that antifreeze off. Okay, so what I did is I lag bolted it down with this 3/8 lag bolt into the front. Let me shut you off and I'll take you over and show it to you. So as soon as the camera adjusts the light, you'll see the head of the lag bolt down there. And what I did is I just, I had a long pilot bit, I drilled down through there and then just took a 9/16 socket and a long extension on the 1/2-inch electric or cordless impact, and just drove it down in there. She's tight now, really tight. What I think I'm going to do is over on the side of the oil pan is just put a couple of 2x4s, one on each side of it, just to keep it from shifting side to side. It shouldn't shift at all because of the curvature of that thing. It really can't shift in that. But I'm just going to do it just as a precaution. Okay, handheld, no gimbal. So here it is, all ready to go. I put them 2 boards on the side of the oil pan just so that it wouldn't shift over. Not that I think it would shift. I also threw in the clutch. What I did is I just screwed that down, put some washers and screwed it down on it. It's got 4 screws in it. But there it is, all ready to ship.